Good morning and welcome to the National Newspaper Publishers Association's Let It Be Known. And I'm seeing a lot of congratulations on the timeline for different ones, but we'll get into that. But more than 1,000 people have died in the past decade after encounters with law enforcement, despite officers using non lethal tactics, according to a recent investigation. The findings again show systemic issues within policing and raise questions about accountability and reform. We will talk about that. And here's something really crazy. A Florida man. Now, this guy went to the police academy, passed all the tests or whatever. Now it's time for his police interview. Where do you hear what happened on Stephen Bodley's police interview and where he wound up and where he may wind up spending the next several decades. Um, really weird. Couple of really good news items today as well. A teenager from Chicago walked in her graduation ceremony this month after earning her doctoral degree at the age of 17. We'll tell you about Dr. Dorothy Jean Tillman II, who was only 10 years old when she became a freshman at the College of Lake County, where she majored in psychology. Lots with this young lady. And not to be outdone, Madison Crowell said she always knew she wanted to go to college. The 18-year-old from Hinesville, Georgia, is going to fulfill that dream this fall. But wait do you hear, I should say, um, of the amazing news of her getting going to college. What propelled this? It, Unbelievable stuff. But first, we're gonna have the what I'm calling the Greer portion of the program. The Greer inspired portion of the program. As as I've shared, she sends me things on social media at all times. It's like Dr. Chavis calls it all times. Greer is just scrolling stuff and checking stuff out at all times. And so this is the Greer inspired portion of Let It Be Known. And the first item really is interesting item. Really, this judge, Eighth Judicial Circuit Judge Robert Adrian, he appeared in front of the Illinois Courts Commission for a hearing regarding potential misconduct. The Courts Commission decided to remove him from the bench. According to the 30 plus page ruling document, there are several criteria used to determine appropriate sanctions for for judicial misconduct. And the courts commission found that Judge Adrian's misconduct included several acts that violated the Illinois Code of Judicial Conduct over a near 2 year span. One such incident states that it started in January 2022 when he reversed his guilty finding in a sexual assault case, Drew Clinton's sexual assault case, voluntarily on his own accord, he reversed this, saying that he avoided the mandatory sentencing law required. In October of 2021, Adrian found that 18-year-old Drew Clinton was guilty of sexually assaulting a 16-year-old girl over Memorial Day weekend that year. During the sentencing hearing in January 2022, he reversed his decision, stating that spending 148 days in jail was plenty of punishment for this 18-year-old who sexually assaulted the 16-year-old. Unreal, right? The commission stated that they do not believe any judge who follows the law would ever permit an innocent person to sit in jail. But shortly after, the commission says there was more misconduct when Adrian retaliated against Adams County Assistant State's Attorney Josh Jones by having him removed from the courtroom, and again in April of 2022 when he testified falsely in front of the board. According to court records at his hearing in November of 2023 before the commission, Adrian again gave false testimony under oath. This is a judge. Now he's a former judge. Um, the commission stated that although Adrian acknowledged his improper conduct with respect to Jones, he did not acknowledge the fact that he avoided the law when he entered the finding of not guilty in the Clinton case and instead redirected focus to his quote unquote rookie mistake. And this guy found, and apparently rightfully so, found this young man guilty of sexually assaulting this 16-year-old girl. Defense did not make a motion or anything like that later to reverse this judge, and neither did the prosecutor. The judge decided that this young man had spent 140 some odd days in prison, and that was enough. Power 96 says that sounds about white. And speaking of Power 96, he's sending out a shout out, a big congratulations to Totally Randy. Yes, she did have a baby girl, um, healthy, and they are at home with her son and her husband and her. And from all accounts, doing well. So there's a new addition to the Totally Randy family. Congratulations to Totally Randy. Um, and it was David Youngblood who is shouting out Angela also Brooke for her victory yesterday in the Democratic primary in Maryland. She's a very popular uh, individual in Maryland, particularly among folks of color. So Angela also Brooke has some fans. David Dunn. I mean, David Dunn, Harry Dunn. There's Angela, also Brooke, there with the governor. Um, Harry Dunn lost his race yesterday. It was a close race um, that he ran against State Senator Sarah Alfred, and we talked about that yesterday. How the MAGA folks had poured all this money into Sarah Effort's campaign. She said that she had no control over that. She Candidates are not supposed to mingle with super PACs, but we never heard Sarah Alfred denounce the MAGA super PACs that were pouring because they didn't. They simply the reason they financially supported her and poured money into a campaign was simply because Harry Dunn was he was a very prominent. He became very prominent anyway. He was a um, law enforcement officer at the Capitol police officer who helped keep other lawmakers alive on January 6th. And so this was their payback. He didn't allow them to hang Mike Pence or Nancy Pelosi as they had set out to do. And most importantly to them, he didn't allow them to get in there in time to overturn or do something to stop the certification of President Biden's victory over Donald Trump. Austin says that Alfred will now endorse Trump as a Democrat. I guess we will see. I mean, as a Dem, she's gonna. Wow. Anyway, anyway, so again, in continuing the Greer portion of the of Let It Be Known this morning, she sent this too, and I thought, you know what, this was quite the message from a veteran, a legendary news man, Dan Rather, and raising a lot of the same concerns we raise. And his note is in part says, as democracy um, remains under siege. It has been frustrating to watch how the press covers politics these days. He says, I am reminded by lessons that came to me during the Nixon years as a CBS News correspondent, which I'll add here. He says, number one, enough with both sides ism. When one side lies intentionally and repeatedly, they are no longer entitled to the benefit of the doubt. They should be held to account right away. Do not simply repeat the narrative they spew. And we see that and have seen that all the time when it comes to the last few elections, I should say. Um, Number two, Dan Rather says prioritize live fact checking. Absolutely. He says rigorous and robust fact checking is the best defense against misinformation, intentional lies, and deflection. If Donald Trump says the sky is green, the story isn't that the sky is now green. The story is that the sky is still blue and Trump got it wrong. Number three, he says, ask lawmakers hard questions. He says, ask about the fundamental principles of democracy. Push them to go on the record that Biden won the 2020 election. Ask if they support the Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe v. Wade. He says this writing is not to offer any claim of knowing it all. Your correspondent has made his share of mistakes, but after more than 7 decades, I believe I have picked up a few useful guidelines. And in conclusion, Dan Rather says, good journalism is always worth it. Our democracy depends on it. And that was from Dan Rather, a guy who thank you, has earned respect in this business. For somebody like myself who's been in this business about 30 years, I think I can speak to that this man has definitely earned the respect um, of his peers and of those who have come after him, which certainly includes this generation. So Dan Rather is just laying it out on the out there, and he's where show me where he's wrong. Um, Michelle Madison says she voted for Angela also Brooks. However, she didn't vote for the incumbent mayor of Baltimore, Brandon Scott. Mike V says interesting that the pro police conservatives didn't back Harry Dunn for defending democracy on 1-6. Who's the real patriots out here? That is interesting, right, Mike? That um, pro police conservatives didn't back him. All that's out the window, right? Here's something else too. Again, to come complete the Greer portion of the program. You got to take a look, and I'm pretty sure she has it nice and queued up for us.
To
But
the 7-year-old
this video, tell me what you think.
girl who had to watch me and my brothers jump her daddy after school, I'm sorry. I know that was probably a traumatizing experience for you. But we kept asking you to stop bullying my daughter and you wouldn't listen. We sent letters home. We even had a meeting with you and your parents and you wouldn't listen. So now you know your actions have consequences. And since you too young to receive those consequences, you had to watch your daddy take those consequences. Get some therapy. You'll be all right.
That's- What do you think of that? Um, this is a 7-year old he's talking about. 7-year-old girl, who I guess had been bullying his child, and so they took it out on the dad. He said that they had um, a sit down with the family beforehand, talk to the family about the bullying. They took all the necessary steps, and yet the bullying continued. And so the 7-year old had to watch her dad, I guess, get a beat down. And he says that, that is the consequence. She can't, at 7 years old, they can't inflict consequences upon her. So she had to see that there are consequences. I mean, I need to hear from y'all what y'all think. It's kind of out there. I don't know that is wow. Um That is corrective behavior, Quentin. Mr. Direct. So he's all for it. He said that is corrective behavior. Wow. So we are responsible. David says that's crazy. We are responsible, huh, for the children. Mike V says, why not take your child out of that environment as a plan B rather than use violence within your community? Now, see, I'm more on the Mike V side here, but wow, I didn't expect that from Quinn. Quinn said that is corrective behavior. Yeah, the comments. Somebody right there, Redbone 723, says that he acts nicely the first time. Um, yeah, he acts nicely the first time. Everyone is the voice of reason until it's your child. Um, Angie says, "Can we get a third opinion to vote for? He could have made a better choice, but I ain't mad at him." Matt Barnes says, "No room for bullies. It has long-lasting effects. Also, one of the main causes for children's suicide. Violence is never the answer, but sometimes it is." Okay, which way it is, Matt? If you listen to the whole situation, the father said they met with the father and the daughter a few times with no results. Right. Um, and others saying he was right. Some say it isn't right. Angela Connolly is writing in says these kids are different. I refuse to be a substitute or a bus driver. Anything dealing with minors, no respect. Yeah, that's so where does the fault lie here then? Um, Yesterday we had someone comment, a couple of comments about the parents on in another situation, but where does the responsibility really lie here? I mean, this is a 7-year-old girl doing the bullying. Paid the price, apparently. Uh-oh, big sister speaking up. Monique Daniels says the school should have stepped in and took action to possibly suspend the bullying child. Don't remove the child that is being bullied, remove the bully. 100%. And Angela Connolly says the fault definitely lies on the parents. And Power 96 says keep that same energy when a white person says something to your child. Power 96, he's gonna bring it back to black and white again. But see, I knew there would be varying thoughts on this, and as parents, we must do our best to teach our children better. Dr. Nicole says some parents don't care about bullying as long as it's not their kid being bullied. And see that's a big problem. That is obviously a big problem. It's that whole okay, it's I'm not going to react until I need to react, until I have to react, until I'm forced to react. So you put your hands on my child, it's a different story, but my child can put their hands on your child. See, yeah, Dr. Nicole, I get it. I get it. That is horrible. A teenager shot his stepmom. Yeah, did you guys see that? Angela Connolly brings out. We were talking about that last week. My wife and I. Power 96 says, don't forget he has 3 white friends. Yeah, he said they talk. But Angela, I saw that. So that story. Now we move into the Angela Connolly portion of Let It Be Known. But that story um really shook me for a minute because and I still so Dan Rather talked about how we report stuff. And I am so mad. My wife and I together read about 4 different stories on that trying to figure out stuff because whoever reported and that included the Associated Press um just left out so many details. But here's what we know happened. Um a woman was at a graduation. Her child was graduating and her stepchild was graduating. Came time to, for the students on the stage, on the platform to bring out, I guess, parents and loved ones for roses or whatever. The mother comes up, hugs her child, and goes over to also congratulate and hug her stepchild. The stepchild, now they say that there's been no incidents of domestic problems, no w- nothing. He doesn't have a record or anything. He pulls out a gun and shoots her in the neck and stomps on her head. And absent from every single story that we was pouring through to find more details, like, okay, wait a minute. Um, at first you're thinking, because they charged him with assault on a household member, which suggests that the stepson does live with the stepmother. But nobody brings that out because the other stories say that they don't say that they live together. But nowhere in the story does it mention the father. It doesn't mention any type of living arrangements. It doesn't mention because she was there. It states each story states that she was there um, for her son and noticed her stepson and went over. He was graduating too, and she went over to congratulate him as well, which suggests that they don't live together. That she wasn't there for him. So there's a lot of holes there in the story. Just poor reporting on this. Very poor reporting on this story. But no reported incidents of domestic violence. Right. Daniela Pierre says so. So you guys are very much aware of this story. Um, and so okay. So Shanae says it was her ex stepson. Ex stepson. See, it gets even more convoluted. But nonetheless, it mentions nothing about. It mentions that the grandmother took him to get a haircut just a couple of days beforehand, but it doesn't mention anything else about the family relationship or nothing. Come on, we gotta do better, journalists, fellow journalists. Um, but nonetheless, yeah, Angela Connolly, that was horrifying. At a graduation ceremony in front of hundreds of people, the sister of the victim said she grabbed him to prevent him from repeatedly stomping on her sister's head after he shot her. He just snapped and he refused to talk to police. So they don't know what triggered this. There's a whole lot of questions that he's not answering. But at the same time, too many holes in the story. So I mean, not is certainly not speaking at all to, I mean, he definitely did it. It's on video and everything else. So it's not speaking to that. Just speaking to when you read a story, you want to come away with all of the facts, at least an attempt at all of the facts. But anyway, what a horrible, no matter how you slice it, though. Angela Conley said he was charged with just assault. Um, but no matter how you slice it, it's a horrible, horrible story in this graduation season. I'm so glad that in a moment we have some really good graduation stories that we're going to bring to you in a moment. Um, but we start with this use of deadly force. More than 1,000 people have died in the past decade after encounters with law enforcement, despite officers using non-lethal tactics, according to this huge investigation that the Howard Center for Investigative Journalism, PBS's Frontlines, and the Associated Press jointly got together to do. And that's another thing too. Let me stop there for a moment because I'm going to go off the rails in a moment. But I got to say this. I got to say this. The only way to get real in-depth investigative journalism done is through collaboration. And this is an example of that. I got a call from the New York Times last week. Um, they needed my assistance as they are doing an investigative piece. I can't go into details on it, but they're doing an investigative piece, and they reached out to me to help do some reporting and find and do some what do you call FOIA requests, Freedom of Information Act request on their behalf in the area in which I live, because you have one of the r- rules to get FOIA information is that you have to live or possess a residence or a driver's license in the area. And so I'm collaborating with them on something. But the point is, the overall point is that we in the black press, we always, you've heard us talk about this need for collaboration, black media, black owned media. It's vital. You because the funding is gone. I saw where Melinda Gates has removed herself from the Gates Foundation now. Um, they gave her something like $12 billion. $12 billion, and the Gates Foundation funds a lot of different things. In recent years, the National Newspaper Publishers Association had a relationship, an education deal with Gates as well. But you need collaboration, is what I'm saying, and because the funding for journalism, of course, we know advertising and everything else. This is why it's these candidates, they want to use us, and then they want to spend their campaign money elsewhere, though. Um, it's just it's untenable. But nonetheless, so you see here this amazing investigation, the Associated Press, the Howard Center for Investigative Journalism, and PBS's Frontline. It's a lot. That's a lot of resources right there. A whole lot of resources. And this is why it's important to support folks, local journalism. It's important to support Let It Be Known and others like us. It's important to support the National Newspaper Publishers Association, the Black Press of America, so that you can get information that is useful. But the findings from their investigation show systemic issues within policing. And of course, it raises more questions about accountability and reform. Each of these victims, more than 1,000 that they examined, was unarmed and posed no immediate threat. And that sentence, that they were unarmed and posed no immediate threat, is supported through um, police video, body cam video, through other videos, through medical reports and medical examiner reports. Yet these individuals have met uh, the end of their lives after police resorted to methods such as uh, physical holds, meaning choke holds, tasers, body blows, which are typically meant to subdue individuals without causing harm. The investigation showed the potential lethalness of the tactics when misused. And again, it raised the whole thing. It echoed George Floyd. But in one of the many examples that the investigations found, they highlighted an incident in South Boston, Virginia, where one of three officers who shocked a man rolling on a hospital sidewalk said that suspect's actions, not the guidelines provided for taser use, dictated what he should do. He noted that the officer or the investigators noted that the officers fired their tasers a combined 20 times even after handcuffing this man. The officer defended himself by saying there are 8 pages of warnings. And basically, if I read and abided by every single warning, I would not tase anyone. Well, isn't that the idea? As Mike V brings up Eric Garner, isn't that the idea? It's not the last resort. Of course, the last resort should be shooting them, but tasing should be near that level. He's upset because he wouldn't get a chance to tase anyone if he followed the guidelines, according to him. And make it matters worse, they settled a civil suit with this man, but federal prosecutors examined this case and said they didn't see enough evidence to pursue civil rights charges against the three officers. But for this entire report, the Frontline, PBS, Howard Center, and AP, they filed thousands, thousands upon thousands of FOIA requests for government documents and body camera footage. They also came across or got obtained, I should say, 700 autopsy reports and death certificates. So this report is extremely comprehensive. And the victims, though diverse in background, most of them, of course, were black, including Donald Ivy Jr., who um, is a former athlete. He had left an ATM alone one night when officers sized him up as suspicious and they tried to detain him. He was unarmed and scared, so he ran, and police tackled and shocked him with a stun gun. They began beating him mercilessly with batons. Then they held him down on his face. Um, so what the investigation found was that Mr. Ivy was not a threat at all to public safety, and despite that, died after police used the kind of force that is not supposed to be deadly. Right? They held him down on his face until he couldn't breathe anymore. Beat him and tased him and held him on his face. And they found um, that there's a pattern they found of misconduct. Not no surprise, I know, but with officers breaching established guidelines in approximately 45% of the deaths. Many of the victims had underlying medical conditions, or they were under the influence of alcohol or perhaps drugs, which factored in. It heightened their vulnerability to any type of force. Um, and in a lot of cases, they said that the individuals were like Mr. Ivy, pinned down face first for minutes upon minutes. And as they pin them down, they're shocking them repeatedly with tasers. The researchers found that officers restrained someone face down in at least 740 of 1,036 deaths, usually with one or sometimes more using their body weight to do so. In about half of the prone restraint cases, police didn't turn the person over as soon as they were handcuffed, or they did so only after they had stopped responding. One video showed police officers in the town of Ava, Missouri, handcuffing a man who was experiencing a drug relapse. They restrained him in a prone position for 8 minutes. And the police officer that had his weight on this guy warned the guy that he would not ease up until the man stopped kicking. Well, once the man was still, the officer asked the man, "Are you going to be calm now?" The man didn't answer. Another 2 minutes passed before the officer realized that the man had stopped breathing. Federal judge who reviewed the video ruled that the officers didn't do anything wrong. And he said that the law didn't require police to stop prone restraint once a person quit struggling. This is a federal judge saying that they had this officer had no there was nothing to prevent this officer from um, doing what he did un until he died. He could die, in other words. He says the law didn't require police to stop prone restraint once a person quit. Once they stop struggling, the judge said he could still restrain them, still prone in a prone position. But that legal interpretation, the researchers found, was totally out of step with federal courts in other regions. So they're doing, as we know, whatever they will. And so this is again why it's so important to, as I said at the top, support local journalism. Um, and yeah, Power 96 says the report was great, but they failed to mention qualified immunity. Cops having a 97% acquittal rate. If those make it to trial, most of those cases are dismissed. Yeah, and I think that Power 96, that's a s- while it's a part, certainly a big part of the issue today. They were strictly looking at this choke, choking suspects, tasering suspects for no reason, really, putting your knee in their neck and having their face down until they die. So they were looking at the physical part. But once again, you're 100% right. If we've said it, we've had experts say it, remove qualified immunity, and perhaps half of this stuff goes away, if not more. Mr. Durrett says, can you imagine if that training was done during the police academy? There would be a lot of deaths. A lot. And that is a great point, Quinn. An excellent point. But once again, even with all of this, even with all of this, there lies in the U.S. House of Representatives in somebody's desk the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. It has gone nowhere and it is not going anywhere. And that is absolutely criminal in itself. Power 96 says you have to ask the local city council to share with the community the city's contract with the police. The prone restraint should be illegal, just like the chokehold. It really should be. Um, and so this is the problem. What happens to innocent until proven guilty? Most folks, and this is black or white or Hispanic or whatever, are treated in this country now, treated guilty immediately. We know black folks and Hispanic folks especially are looked at upon as immediately guilty, and they have to go to court and prove their innocence, which is contrary to what the law states. The law states that you don't have to prove anything. They have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that you are guilty. But we know that that's not the case, particularly with people of color. And that is where we are. And speaking of police, this story really, 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 really is so, so, so terrible. It's, as Charles Barkley said, terrible. It's terrible. Um, Florida man who aspired to become a police officer. He passed the academy. He did all that stuff, and he had to answer a question. you got to ask, and many, not just police officers, but many employment, even journalism. If you've ever been convicted or whatever, in this case, this guy was asked about many different crimes, including sexual assault. He admitted, he voluntarily, I don't think he was asked specifically. I'm going back here, and he wasn't asked. He volunteered that he sexually abused his cousin during a job interview. He was on the job interview part of it. Now he wanted to be a police officer. He was doing everything to be a police officer, and now he faces life in prison. Stephen Bodley, he's 26 years old. He was convicted by an Orange County jury just last week of sexual battery on a child. He first mentioned playing, quote unquote, playing sexual games in a sworn officer application with the Apopka Police Department. He again mentioned the crime during an interview. Quote, the certified voice stress analysis examiner performed a voice stress examination on Bodley, according to the sheriff. During the examination, the examiner asked Bodley to expand on concerning answers he provided in a pre-test questionnaire. Bodley described sexually abusing a child years ago and admitted to it when he was asked to expand further. Detectives tracked down the victim's mother, who said Bodley and the victim had a close relationship. The Tampa Bay Times um, reported this because they got a hold of the affidavit. So the victim turned out to be a female and who told the Florida Department of Children and Family Services about the abuse, saying it took place over several years from when Bodley was around 14 to when he was about 19. Uh, they didn't say the age of the girl, I should say, the young girl. It doesn't matter. Um, but Bodley's lawyer asked that his confession not be presented during the trial, but a judge denied the request. He's going to be sentenced next month, and the conviction carries up to life in prison. This guy, this guy, to me, I mean, I find humor in everything, just about. He's an idiot, and I'm not mad that it caught up with him. If you are abusing a child, I don't care if it takes 50 years. Um, you deserve you deserve to be incarcerated. Now, those one of those things. I have you ever heard me say? I don't think everything deserves jail. I think they get carried away with that, and they get carried away, especially with people of color. But a child molester should be locked under the jail, no privileges whatsoever. And so he got away with it, or he thought he got away with it, at least for a number of years. Then he wanted to go and enforce the law, be a law enforcement officer, an officer of the law. Yeah, okay. Wow. Well, it's graduation season. And how about this? A teenager from Chicago walked in her graduation ceremony this month after earning her doctoral degree at the age of 17. She is Dr. Dorothy Jean Tillman II. And she was just 10 years old when she became a freshman at the College of County, where she majored in psychology. Well, 4 years ago, she earned her Master of Science from Unity College. And in 2021, she was accepted in the Doctor of Behavioral Health Management program at Arizona State University at the age of 15. Uh, she went on Good Morning America, and she says she had always held education in such high regard, in part due to her family's background. She says, people in my life, like my grandmother, who was part of the civil rights movement, She, of course, harped on the importance of education and consistently learning something always. In December of last year, at the age of 17, Dr. Tillman successfully defended her dissertation to earn her doctoral degree in integrated behavioral health from ASU's College of Health Solutions. On May 6th, she walked at ASU's commencement ceremonies. Dr. Leslie Manson, a clinical associate professor at ASU, um, said Tillman is the youngest person in school history to earn a doctoral degree in integrated behavioral health. Her journey to success wouldn't be made possible without the support from her mom, who she said is one of her biggest motivators. She says, seeing my mother consistently work so hard to continuously uphold our family's legacy and be that person that everyone was able to go to if they needed anything, always seeing her like a Wonder Woman, definitely made me want to grow up into an accomplished person. See, a lot of times, we talked earlier about the parents' responsibility. And this young lady is talking about her upbringing and how that she had all of the right uh, folks. The parents were involved, obviously. Her parents were such an example. And Dr. Tillman, young Dr. Tillman, has co-founded and is the CEO of the Dorothy Genius STEAM Leadership Institute, where she runs programs like summer camps to help kids find balance between arts and STEM subjects. And so, what is her plans after graduation? She says she's just like any other teenager. She's still figuring out what her specific dreams and goals are. She says, "I'm really just grateful that the world is my oyster, and that I've done so much so young, and I have time to kind of think that through." And giving advice to other youngsters, Dr. Tillman says she would remind them to be careful about being influenced on what they see on social media, noting that some posts, quote, aren't real. She says there's a lot more to whatever it is than what you're seeing, you know, and so to always remember that is definitely important. And to always remember that everyone has points in their life where they feel like they're figuring it out. And so figuring things out, not knowing what you want, isn't a bad thing. But making the choice not to sit down and try to figure it out. What a great, great story. Uh, Austin says, I got my master's when I was 26 and PhD when I was never. Power 96 says, simply amazing black girl magic. Now, only if my son would pay my money back for his college tuition. He's still charging his son student loan interest. And I'm telling him he's got to stop that. He said he could spend his days on the beach. I thought the president forgave student loan debt, Power 96. And that includes yours to your son. Relax. Let the young man have a debt-free start to his life. And speaking of, and I got you, Mike V. Mike V says that it looks like the DOJ is ordering or requesting the judge order Steve Bannon to start serving his time. Yeah, go to jail. Go directly to jail. Don't pass go. And another inspiring educational story. It's graduation season. How about Madison Crowell? She always knew she wanted to go to college. The 18-year-old from Hinesville, Georgia, will fulfill that dream this fall when she heads off to High Point University in High Point, North Carolina, where she will attend under a full tuition scholarship. But what makes her story extraordinary isn't just that she's going to college, but she had applied to hundreds of schools and she was accepted into 231 schools and awarded, are you ready for this? $14.7 million in scholarships. She says, I wanted to apply to as many schools as I did because I'm coming from a low income area of Georgia. And so I want to show the kids here in Liberty County that it's possible to get accepted into not only just local schools like Georgia Southern and Savannah Technical, but that you can get accepted into schools like the University of Alabama, University of Colorado, and schools that you think might be out of your reach, but is definitely in reach. These young ladies are amazing. High Point University President Dr. Nito Cuban celebrated her decision to attend the university. Crowell said that she and her parents, her dad is a sergeant first class Delando Langley, and her mom, Melissa Langley, have been preparing for her to go to college ever since she was a young girl. But when she was in middle school, their preparations kicked into high gear, and they would periodically take road trips and go on college tours wherever they could. She also said she made a commitment to herself, knowing that she wanted to pursue a career in the medical field and major in exercise science, that she would work toward her goal of going to college. Wow, wow, wow. In Power 96 in his student loan situation, he says that he is the president of his house and he charges an unbelievable 45% interest. Boy, I don't know, Greer. I think we got to get Dawn down there to Louisiana to have a sit down with Power 96. Got to have a sit down with him. Got to negotiate that interest for his son. I feel bad for his son. He can't be paying all that student loan interest. We're trying. We've been applauding every time President Biden announces student loan forgiveness. And I guess the next time, Greer, we go to the White House, we have to have a sit down with the president and let him know that he must extend that student loan forgiveness to Power 96's son, because this is untenable. 45% interest rate. I know Michelle Madison does not approve Power 96. She does not approve. I could tell she does not approve. But some great education stories, I guess you can call them, but accomplishments is what I was looking for. Great accomplishments. Two young, gifted black girls doing, as they say, doing the thing. Accepted 231 universities and colleges, nearly 15 million in scholarships. Wow, that is amazing. Well, I tell you what else is amazing. You guys and watching Let It Be Known. Continue to support us. And as we said, continue to support the Black press of America. Really important, really important. So, wherever you live, I'm sure that there is a Black owned newspaper in the vicinity. If not, I don't, that means that you probably live out of the country. But you can go on the website as well. And speaking of going online, of course, once again, before we close, we got to say, go to our YouTube page at LIBK-news and hit subscribe and share it. Tell everybody else to subscribe. And we will bring you some great stuff again tomorrow. You know, it's Mental Health Awareness Month. And so we're going to be talking more. We're going to have a special guest tomorrow, and we're going to talk about mental health and mental health awareness. So join us tomorrow on Let It Be Known. We'll see you then.